Thank you for joining us today in our session, The Core Concepts in Reengagement. Today's keynote presenter is Senior Program Specialist Antonia Rangel-Caril from the Institute of Youth, Education and Families at the National League of Cities. Antonia manages a national re-engagement network and supports cities in expanding their opportunity youth re-engagement efforts. My name is Mandy Paradise. I'm the Reengagement Program Supervisor at OSPI and today's host. We are also joined by Allison Fritz from the Next Generation Zone with Northeast Washington's ESD 101. We're going to go ahead and get started. You can use the chat feature for questions or comments. Antonia, thank you so much for being here. I'll pass to you.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm just going to do a quick introduction. Thank you, Mandy. For the introduction, I'll explain further more about who the National League of Cities is and who I am. So the National League of Cities is a membership organization. We support city leaders, government officials, elected officials. We support them, and I particularly work within the Institute of Youth, Education and Families, which is the think tank of the National League of Cities. We have so many different departments or areas of expertise where we help cities develop youth programming. We help cities bounce ideas off of each other. I particularly work within the re-engagement field. So I manage a re-engagement network of over 28 re-engagement centers or hubs, as well as over 700 individuals are a part of that. We host quarterly re-engagement meetings. We put out weekly resources, and that's just to make sure that people who are re-engagement specialists are able to have access and opportunities to learn about different strategies that are happening around the United States. And so today I will be sharing our core concepts that we follow here at the National League of Cities and the information that we share with our partners so that they can build stronger and support them with building stronger re-engagement programs. Next slide. So we utilize Measure of America for all of our data. They pull directly out of the census, and they're able to collect data around opportunity youth. And so the way we identify opportunity youth are 16 to 24-year-olds who are not in school nor working. So Measure of America used 2020 US Census particularly to calculate that there's about 4.8 million young adults who are neither in school nor working. So that's an average about 12.6% of the youth population. Next slide. On a national scale, this is also pulled from Measure of America. These are the 100 most populous metro areas and the way that how much opportunity youth are within that area. So you definitely see a high number within the Texas area. You see a high number within the Southern California area. You can see Washington has 2 points, as well as the Portland metro area, which also includes Vancouver, Washington. Florida has some hot spots, as well as the New England. I think that's the New England area, I think that's the New England area, or Mid-Atlantic, New England area. Next slide. And so youth disconnection by metro. So just as a reminder, there's about 4.8 million opportunity youth. That number, the national percentage is 12.6. Typically, the percentage of opportunity youth falls between 9% to about 16%. So Portland, Oregon, this is the metro. So that also includes, just as a heads up, since this is Washington, it includes Vancouver, Washington. So about 13%, that's a little bit above the national rate. We have Los Angeles, California with 12.4%, Boston, Massachusetts at 9.4%, Omaha, Nebraska 9.9%, Houston, Texas 14.3%. And actually all of these cities are involved with our re-engagement network. They share their best strategies to support opportunity youth, as well as they're highly involved in a lot of our peer learning opportunities as well. Next slide. And so particularly in Washington has about 170,000 opportunity youth, and that's about 12.7. Will still in the average area, but you see the numbers go up in terms of Black and Native youth. They have the highest rate of disconnection within not only Washington state. This is also includes all across the United States. You see high rates. The highest rates of disconnection is Native Americans. Second is Black students. And then when you move, I don't think I can move. And then when you talk about different areas, so there's about 46,500 opportunity youth in the Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue metro area. And then another point that was another data point that was in the disrupted years, that there's about 12,000 opportunity youth in the Spokane Valley area. Next slide. And if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll get to them. And so talking through the way we view re-engagement. So we have the 5 functions. This based on the information that we have collected from our partners. So we also analyze a lot of different re-engagement models. These 5 functions are within all of the models that we partner with. And so we have outreach, assessment, referral, support to re-enroll, support to stay enrolled. So outreach is really making sure that opportunity youth know that there is options for them to re-enroll back in school, back into education, or back into an educational institute, or into a workforce or work development program. So that outreach can look a variety of different ways, and we'll get into that a little bit later. There's the assessment piece. So once a young person gets connected to your hub, to your program, really assessing what their needs are to make sure that they are being connected to the right resources and making sure that they have the services that they need, because it's really hard to pay attention to school if you are struggling with housing, if you're struggling with finding adequate or clean water and food to eat. So when you're doing an assessment, you're like, okay, so what basic needs do you have? And also kind of seeing where they're at educationally, because if they need 2 more credits, then it's like, okay, let's put you in this program, let's get those 2 credits done. But that support could look very different for someone who may be 20 years old and then they only have 5 credits to their name. Like that's a lot of credits that they'll need to make up. So their support will look very different from someone who may be 18, 19 years old and they have 3 or 4 credits. Opportunity youth in our specific city. I just saw a question. I would suggest going to Measure of America and seeing if they have that data specifically for the city. It's an interactive tool. It's very useful. They break it down also by counties as well. So highly recommend playing around with that tool and seeing if they have data for your particular area. And if the area is small, they may add surrounding areas to that too. But I am not entirely sure what area you're talking about, so I don't have that much information to give. And then can you say the tool again? It's Measure of America. So if you go to measureofamerica.com, it's their data tool for their it's called a disrupted year for 2020 census. And it's posted at the top of the chat. Thank you. And so we have referrals. So once you understand what your client needs, understanding what services they need as well, you'll do that referral. So we always recommend a warm handoff, making sure that you're referring them to not just an agency, but to a person, really making them like feel safe. Like, okay, I'm gonna use Mandy. I'm connecting you with Mandy. Mandy's gonna take good care of you. Mandy, let me know if you need help with anything. Me and Mandy will stay connected, but like, this is your person. She's going to be your new contact person. So that's really helpful when you're doing a referral, as opposed to like handing them a number and saying, okay, this is who you need to connect to, or having it not be as formal. Because if they trust you enough, you're building that trust with another organization. If you directly know, like, this is Mandy, she's going to help you with X, Y, and Z. I trust her. If she does a bad job, let me know. No, but it helps with that relationship building. And so then you support them to re-enroll to whatever program that they've decided on. And then one of the hardest ones, in my opinion, is the support to stay enrolled, because life happens. For a variety of different reasons, they may drop again. So really supporting them to stay enrolled. And if they do drop again, oftentimes you do go through the 5 functions again. But even though this is a direct line, sometimes it's a little loop. But we always recommend all successful re-engagement centers to have some kind of capacity of each of these 5 functions. Next slide. So we have a little question. Feel free to write it in the chat box. What best practices does your organization utilize that follow the 5 functions? I'll just read it off the chat box. Support to stay enrolled. And also, if you're able to, I'm not sure if you're able to unmute yourself, but I would love to learn, to hear about how you support your clients, your young people, to stay enrolled.
I'll join Antonia in making that offer. We would love 1 or 2 shares out loud. Some of you have been doing re-engagement specialist roles or case management roles in Open Doors, and you'll have some experience to share with peers who might be new to the work. We'd love to hear your voice.
Hi, my name's Deanne Fuller. I'm the registrar at iGrad Academy Open Doors. And I was just going to share some things that we do here at iGrad to support students to stay enrolled. We actually have a social worker on site that is part of our school, and we have hotspots, we have food and clothing, we have transportation that he helps with, and just all around social emotional. And then we also have a private in-house counseling service that is not part of the Kent School District, and it's just like if you went to go pay for a counseling service, and they are in-house here at iGrad for students to get social emotional support confidentially in a room that we have here, an office that we have here for students. And so we found that to be critical of helping support students to stay enrolled here at iGrad, as well as making up really fun functions of squad goals and field trips. And today we're actually having a pancake breakfast for ASVAB testing, and so they're flopping flapjacks and got bacon over there, and you know, just trying to make iGrad, we call it the iGrad family. And so it's a family here. That's the atmosphere that we have at our school, knowing students' names when they walk in the door, looking at the scan-in, seeing what their name is, because we have an electronic scanning system. All of these things to try and connect with these students the best that we can to keep them enrolled.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Diane, for sharing that. That's amazing. I love like the idea of community and engagement. I think young people in general love to feel wanted in a community. They like to feel safe in a community, and they like to also have fun. Pancakes always sounds fun to me. So thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else? I know a few people wrote in the chat box. I thought I heard someone else.
I'm going to ask and see if either Amy or Lacey might want to share aloud for us what they wrote in their chat.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm Amy Steinhilber. I'm the director of the Washington Youth Challenge Academy, and we're not technically classified as a re-engagement program, but we're kind of that unique square peg in the round hole. We kind of cover a variety of the MSTS levels, if you will. And one of them is kids at this level of the pyramid who are 16 to 24, really for us 16 to 18, and are extremely behind in high school credits. And so as I look at your functions, I think we kind of hit all of them in a variety of ways, because not only when we finish serving them in the 5.5 months residency, and they've had the option to achieve those 8 to 12 credits, we're also providing them that support for continuation of completion of their secondary, post-secondary goals for themselves through case management and mentoring. So yeah, that's what I had written there.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, most programs, especially re-engagement programs, do hit some 5 functions, and I'm glad that you're thinking about how does my organization hit these 5 functions. Hey, Catherine, I just saw your comment. You may not be able to share your video, but I believe you should be able to unmute if you wanted to share.
Hi, excuse me. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm from the Sequim School District and just starting my 2nd year. And re-engagement is something that I do as the truancy liaison. And so we started halfway through last school year. And so it's just an effort that really hadn't been focused on. And so I'm very proud that we do have a system now. So on count days every month, certain students, if they haven't attended, are inactivated. So each month I will go through and run a report and look for any inactive students, through a specific time frame that have U codes, that have unconfirmed transfers. And then I start working to track those students down. If I have to, contact a family member, contact the parent, if we have notes that they were supposed to go to a new school, I'll try to contact somebody at the new school just to see if they are enrolled or not. So just when I first started last school year, the list was long. And so now this list gets much shorter every month, and it's kind of the same students that I just haven't been able to find. We know usually they're out of state, and so we just have a hard time tracking them down. But just the fact that we have a focus to do that each month feels really good.
And thank you, Catherine, for adding that. Yeah, we always recommend just using that information to really to track down your students. I think that's a great strategy.
Antonia, I'm going to jump in and say, I know I see a few folks out there who have been doing this work a while and have familiarity with what we might term in our data protocols, leavers, or folks who might be on the leaver list. And we have a resource for that on our Open Doors webpage. But if there's anybody out there who could help others understand what a U or D code is and how to find your leavers or your unconfirmed transfers, I'd love somebody to start us off with a brief discussion. Who out there can tell us more about finding youth?
Deanne again at iCred Academy. In our district, we do have D codes, which are unconfirmed codes. And our district actually sends iGrad at the very beginning of every month, the first of the month, the whole district's unconfirmed transfers for all of our high schools. So iGrad has an outreach program that we have a clerical staff that is our attendance person that calls every single person that is not enrolled. That is not enrolled any longer in the Kent School District, and try and engage those students. And we found that it's helpful for the other high schools, because you'd think, oh, they've just withdrawn from iGrad, which happens a lot. We have it can be a revolving door for a lot of our students that have already been enrolled. But it's nice that we can catch these students that are from our other schools, not just iGrad. It's the whole Kent School District that we are getting the outreach call from to be able to call, let them know about our program, the things that we have to offer. And so it's kind of an umbrella approach for us. Although I know the other schools have their BECA, policies and truancy policies that they go through if they can't get a hold of those students. But it's a multi-level tag team that we're trying to have multiple people that are reaching out to these students to track them down and find them, and at least let them know about an open doors re-engagement program that might be helpful for these students that are struggling in the traditional high schools.
And this is Lacey DeWer from the Coastal School District. I'll chime in. One of the things we've added to our re-engagement, so for our graduating cohorts, when kids drop off, right? They're here one day and then they disappear on us. Because we do home visits. We're going to track these kids down, but we do it with a wraparound service. So we take our family community resource center person, who is Nancy Baldwin. So Nancy goes with us. So if we have a kid that's struggling with any of those food insecurities, housing insecurities, job insecurities, whatever it is, like I've got somebody on site with us when we go to the door to say, hey, we can help with that. Because again, as somebody said, if they don't know where they're living, I can't get them back to school. And so we use Nancy, we use whoever that kid's counselor was. And if possible, we try to take a teacher with us who that kid knew, right? And so we will send that out saying, hey, we're going to go out to X, Y, and Z's house. Would anybody want to go with us? And we have a pretty good response from our staff because somebody connected with that kid at some point, hopefully. But yeah, we'll get a couple staff members say, yeah, I would love to go. And then to watch that connection, like, hey, buddy, we believe in you still. We want you back. We want you to be successful. We can at least get them to continue the conversation. But it really, the first conversation, 99% of the time is with our McKinney-Vento Family Resource Center person, because that's a huge barrier for our kids.
Thank you, Lacey, for sharing that. And there's also so much great examples in the chat box as well. So feel free to read through all of the things that your colleagues or re-engagement experts are sharing. But yeah, outreach, I think in terms of leaver lists is such a big one. I know, just like, for example, Boston, Massachusetts particularly, they use a leaver list, and every single year they actually have volunteers go door knocking just to share information about re-engagement resources. So not necessarily like the school district, which is also like, there's amazing examples of that, which I'll get into after this example. But Boston, they'll start knocking on doors, they'll be handing pamphlets out. And this is in areas that they know a missing young person lives. This is in zip codes with high rates of re-engagement. So it's not just focused on this one student, but they leave pamphlets throughout all the doors within that area and that neighborhood. So it's not just one person. Someone can say, oh, this is on my door. I guess I might call them. I might. They do it every year. They have been doing it every year. So they have a pretty decent success rate for that. And so does Houston, Texas. They recently went into an area zip code that has high rates of disconnection, and they didn't just, and this was the school district, so they came with support to re-enroll kids back into the school. They came with supports to enroll families back into like just different resources or being able to connect them to resources. And so they really thought of it in a holistic way as they were going into these communities. So as you're accessing this list, you can do so much more than just looking at the individual kid, but really going into that community that has high rates of disconnection as well. If no one wants to share anything else, we'll do the next slide. So another way that we look at re-engagement is through an ecosystem. The idea that young people and their families need a variety of support and services to successfully enroll, complete, stay enrolled into a program is so important. So we have kind of like the citywide re-engagement portal or hub. This is the center of the work that all of y'all are doing. And so ideally, you will be able to referral or have access to the outer resources. So you have alternative schools in adult education. If you have a young person coming in, or an adult coming in who's between 18 and 24 and are interested in completing a secondary credential, you have the resources to referral them. You will know where to take them, which program to enroll them in. You have paid work training. So oftentimes some opportunity youth, they do have their high school diploma, they do have their secondary credential, or they just received it and now they need work. Now they need to move into an employment, but they may not have the access, the skills, the knowledge to retain employment. And so you have paid workforce training. And then you have social support services. So that means access to water, to food, access to housing, access to clothing, because if you're going to interview, you're supposed to dress and act. Your employers expect young people to dress a certain way, act a certain way. And so they have these services that allow them to dress professionally or whatever. And then also, sometimes you need a phone. Actually, not sometimes, you do need a phone. You need access to internet to apply to jobs. And so do you have opportunities where a young person can sit at a laptop in your program to apply to jobs, to apply to school, to apply to these services? And then you have the physical and behavioral health services. So again, their health is so important. It's hard to think about your future, thinking about going to school if you are struggling physically or mentally. And so ensuring that they have access to receiving mental health and physical health care is important. Again, also thinking about how you're supporting juvenile justice reentry or foster youth in transition. This is a big, in my opinion, this is a point that often gets kind of overlooked, but it's still such an important one. I think I will always highlight Baltimore's re-engagement efforts. So for young people who are leaving the juvenile justice system, they have an exit team, and a part of that exit team is a re-engagement specialist. So they sit with someone and they're like, okay, what do you need as you're leaving the juvenile justice system? Do you need to be enrolled in school, or do you already have your credential? Do you need to enroll into a workforce development training? That's also important. So how are you supporting young folks who are in the juvenile justice system re-enter into some of these educational and employment systems? Again, also with foster youth in transition, oftentimes foster youth, they're moving around a lot and they don't know where they're going to be week after week. So how are we supporting kids in the foster care system continuously have access to these services? And then last but not least is path to post-secondary credentials. Are you supporting some of these young folks in getting their post-secondary credential? This can include dual enrollment in terms of as they're receiving their high school diploma or high school credential, are they, oh, my thumbs up came up, as they're, that was like really random. As they're gaining credits for their high school diploma, do they have their opportunity to also gain credit for post-secondary credential? So a dual enrollment with a community college and a high school diploma, or a dual credential for paid workforce training with the community college. So there's different ways that can look like, but we always recommend, when you're thinking about serving a young person, an opportunity youth, thinking about these 6 different hexagons and how and how you're supporting them to do you have the resources to support them in accessing all 6 of these services. Next slide. Then I believe Mandy will explain the ecosystem from a Washington standpoint, state standpoint.
Thanks, Antonia. Yeah, my goal is to help us look at the re-engagement ecosystem through the lens of re-engagement supports in Washington State. So we're just going to do a quick one-time around with some example supports. Now, in Washington State, our education funded systems use local schools as our main point of entry. And for example, both the Open Doors Youth Reengagement Program and the ESSER Attendance and Reengagement Project use schools and school employees as the reengagement portals. For the first component of schools, both alternative and traditional school programs and staff contribute to youth reengagement. Generally, youth reengagement is thought of in terms of the Attendance and Reengagement Project and Open Doors. Students who reengage through these programs have a variety of education pathways and options that all weave into the rest of this ecosystem that Antonia has presented. Though the majority of youth who are disconnected that access services through Open Doors are ages 16 to 21, they'll enroll again through the Open Doors program or other district programs. Some may also connect to their local community or technical college through a basic education program, or a basic education for adults program. The work and training component in Washington State reengagement is frequently linked to a variety of awesome supports. It includes skill centers, Youth Build, Career Connect Washington, WIOA, SkillSource, and Workforce Development Board partnerships. Additional partnerships are made with industry partners at the local and regional levels. In terms of Open Doors programs can and do often partner with all the aforementioned services. Common social support and services include helping youth access SNAP basic food, migrant education services such as the out-of-school youth supports, working with the district's McKinney-Vento liaison. And the McKinney-Vento liaison is a staff person who supports students who are homeless and have housing instability. The McKinney-Vento liaison can assist with barrier reductions, such as getting students busing across district lines when they might be sleeping or house hopping in one location, but attending school in a different district location. And lastly, the reengagement programs connect with community-based organizations, and they support a variety of youth and young adult needs, from clothing and phone access, like Antonia said, to parenting and cultural activities and food resources. The reengagement program staff may also assist youth in accessing health services, and this can include helping students sign up for Apple Health, which is the Washington provider of Medicaid. Also, it might include helping youth to find and schedule treatment or counseling for substance use or mental health, and also helping them to understand and access family planning and reproductive health care. Now, in Washington State, once a youth turns age 13, they can access mental health and substance use treatment services on their own and with no requirement of parental notification or involvement. We love it when parents can be involved, but we also understand that some opportunity youth don't have close connection or always contact with their guardians and parents. Similarly, in our state, in Washington, youth can independently and privately and confidentially access birth control, abortion services, and prenatal care at any age, which means they can access those services with or without parent permission or notification. And confidential STD testing can be accessed once youth are age 14. Now, the takeaway here for Washington is that no matter where they're living or no matter their dependency status, if you feel to live alone or they're living with relatives or they're couch hopping with friends, they have health rights in our state. And those health rights work to reduce the barriers to school, reduce the barriers to career and physical well-being. Our youth reengagement providers can support health access of our youth. Now, moving on to juvenile justice and foster youth, district truancy liaisons can be helpful when a student is engaged in the truancy process, as well as foster care liaisons. Now, both of these roles are required in each district statewide and often collaborate in reengagement efforts. Our reengagement professionals also have a very special and close connection to the Washington State Education Advocate Program, also known as, or the ed advocates provide support to post-resident youth during their reentry experience. So they're leaving detention facilities and coming into the community and school setting. Our case managers, our re-engagement specialists, and ed advocates often work to coordinate services among students. Lastly, supporting connections to post-secondary credentials is also a part of youth re-engagement. Community and technical colleges are one of the substantial providers of post-secondary credentials in Washington. Skill centers provide certificates needed to thrive in various industry jobs, and apprenticeships and certification opportunities also exist. That was a summary of the kind of regional and local and statewide places to tap into for youth re-engagement supports. All of this information is captured in a document we are calling Common Resources for Washington Re-engagement. It can be found on the Open Doors resources page and will be sent to you directly after the webinar. So thank you so much. I'm going to be passing on to Allison, who's going to tell us a little bit about resource mapping for re-engagement in a more specific and regional perspective.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here with you all. My name is Allison Fritz. I'm the Attendance and Re-engagement Coordinator for Northeast Washington Educational Service District 101. And as Mandy said at the start, I work out of the Next Generation Zone, which is a consortium of different organizations, of 4 different organizations serving youth age 16 to 24, connecting them to education and career services. So I'm going to share something that we created to kind of address the need when Antonia was showing the slides of the 5 functions of re-engagement, when we were at the assessment phase and working with youth and trying to figure out, okay, for students who have, or youth who have 2 credits versus 15, or have certain special needs or different things, what can we offer them? And so this came out of kind of that need for us. Next slide, please. So the ESSER Attendance Re-engagement Project is the kind of umbrella for the work that I do for this project. And one of the 2 main goals is to reconnect youth and families that have disengaged from education or are at risk of disengaging. So there's many different challenges, but one of the sets of challenges was, as we were trying to meet with school staff and districts to identify what's available in your area, we were finding that different folks knew about different opportunities, and that meant that not all students were being offered the full range of pathways that were available to them. And we were trying to determine if somebody had some sort of kind of existing master list for our region, but we found that most people had their own kind of internal lists or their own internal knowledge of what was available. Next challenge. Another issue is that resource mapping, in order for all the folks to know what's out there, is time intensive. And so it could be difficult for districts or schools to find the time to do this. And then the last kind of challenge around this was RESD. Mandy, if you want to go to the next one, RESD serves 59 school districts and is the largest in terms of geographic footprint. And so trying to figure out how do we map these resources in a way that will be useful to all the districts, and how do we organize it in a way that we can create a tool that will be useful and intuitive for students and families. Go ahead and move forward, Mandy. You can go to the next slide. So what we ended up doing was adopting something that Vancouver Public Schools had created, and I want to give a shout out to them and thank them for being willing to share. We adopted something that they had created. We created a version, we kind of used an example and made one for the greater Spokane area, but we created a template that districts could adapt to be used with resources specific to their district. And before I go into kind of what's included, just wanted to briefly share a little bit about the process. So over the course of a few months, as we were meeting with different partners, we were asking, what are the resources that you are connecting students to? Those who are either completely disengaged from school, no longer enrolled, or those who are enrolled but are severely chronically absent or not attending regularly. And so that helped us kind of fill in some gaps. Also, we know that I consider this to be kind of a working tool, and I'm sure there's things that we're going to be wanting to add to it. But we found it really helpful to be meeting with particularly school counselors and other direct service staff to kind of help flesh this out, to understand, because a lot of times they had a great sense of what's available to students. We also met with the juvenile court case managers, community college staff, and some other organizations providing educational services for youth, so that we could provide a resource that includes all the partners in our area that are serving youth in this way. Next slide. So Vancouver Public Schools had it organized in this way, and as we were struggling, grappling what makes sense organizationally, this is what we went with, but there's a lot of different ways you could choose to organize it. So there's a section for how can you access earning your high school diploma, and we didn't include anything specific to an individual district because the intention is that districts can use that template and edit. So they might include things like their alternative learning environment, choice schools, charter schools. But what we did include were things that were available to the greater Spokane area or across the state. So there's online school programs that families can look up on OSPI's database what's offered in their district. There's a couple of community college programs here, some unique a charter school, for example, that serves pregnant and parenting teens. Next section is the GED options, high school equivalency in our region that's offered through Next Generation Zone where I work, and also the community college. The next section is about job skills, and this is an area. Go ahead and advance, Mandy. This one where programs didn't neatly fit because I think all of these also offer GED, but we opted to put them under a classification of job skills, thinking that if maybe students that are coming in and they know I just want to earn my GED, or I'm really interested in career and jobs and vocational, and they might be more attracted to that. So we included the programs offered by the ESD, like Youth Build, Next Generation Zone. There's Job Corps, which is of course federal, and then short-term job training at a community college. And then lastly, there's space to put more resources, anything miscellaneous that districts or schools would find to be useful. And what we decided, there's so many things we could include there, but we decided to include was an emergency shelter that serves youth and allows them to work towards their GED, and also English as a second language program offered by the community college. And this version that's up here, we didn't include that middle section where it says contact your school or one of the programs listed. We didn't include, I didn't put my own contact information because this is going to go out to 59 districts and I can't be the resource for all students and families, but the hope is that districts would indicate either the person or the office that students and families could contact, knowing that not everyone will find this flyer an easy way to navigate. And so having somebody at the school or district that they can contact to help kind of narrow down what would be a good fit. Next slide. So would love to have folks use this, make it, adapt it to however you'd like. You can access it. I think the links will get sent out after. It's on our website for the attendance and reengagement page. That you can either download the PDF as the example that we made for the Greater Spokane region, or the Canva template has a first page of instructions about like how do you modify it and what are some things you could add or maybe remove. It's front and back. The second page has a list of all of the contact information and the addresses for all the resources in case that's helpful for narrowing down what to include. And then you can advance, Mandy. And if you do decide to use it or adapt it, we would love to see how you're using it and what resources you're connecting students to, so that we can also expand how we're using this. So please feel free to email me what you create, or if you have any questions or ideas, I would love to hear from you. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison. For those of you who have been monitoring the chat, we've had a few things dropped in. Jenna's been providing links to a variety of items, including the Canva template. And for those of you who are asking about connections to institutional ed and education advocates, we would refer you to OSPI's program supervisor, Ada Daniels. She has more information on that. So go ahead and scroll through the resources, and most of these resources are compiled and will be sent to you after the webinar. We're moving forward, and we're going to get to hear from Antonia one more time before we wrap up. Antonia, all yours.
Thank you. Also, Allison, it's so pretty. It's pretty to look at, but and also just very helpful. I might also reach out to you, but I'm going to look at your resource as well. I think that's just an amazing way to organize all the resources that are available. And so our last, I guess, like framework model that we use when we're talking about re-engagement here at the National League of Cities, we have the center of the circle, which is the 5 functions: the assessment, the outreach, the referrals, re-enrollment, support to re-enroll, and just the outer ends are different ways you can do this. So when we talk about deployed staff at the very, very top. So that could mean that your re-engagement program puts staff members in centers of, in the center of the community. So that means maybe there's a staff member at a local community college. It's a staff member at a local community center. There's a staff member at an actual re-engagement hub, or there's a staff member at a local community college. So that's what the deployed staffing means. It means that you have employees who are, you're strategically placing them in community, in high traffic community spots. Re-engagement centers also look like a one-stop center. So that means I was kind of thinking about, I believe Deanne, who said that everything's in-house. Whatever resources they have, you can find it within there, or it's easily accessible outside of there. But the one-stop center makes it easy for a young person to go in, get the resources they need. They may even do get their GED prep there. They may even do a job training there. I think Louisville has a good example of a one-stop center where young people go in and they can receive employment training. They have classes there. They even have a few resources that you can easily access there. So that just makes it easy for a young person just to go to one center. But sometimes, depending on, you know, your community, the area you're serving, a one-stop shop may not make sense. Maybe a deployed staff model would make more sense. Then there's the virtual model where everything is essentially online. You can type in your information goes to one person, and that one person may do a phone call. It's virtual. It's easily accessible for those who may have a hard time getting to a location by bus, by foot, by car. A con about this one is that sometimes it's less personal, but it's still a very accessible way. When the pandemic hit, DC, the DC Reengagement Center did a beautiful job at moving virtually. I got to attend one of their Friday meetings. Every Friday they had a little party call in for an hour. They had music. They had they shared information. Whoever called in had an opportunity to win bus passes, win a gift card, win just small prizes. That was essentially money. It was currency, some form of currency. But also within that meeting, they used the breakout rooms within Zoom. So they were still able to get in contact with their case manager at the Reengagement Center. But yeah, and I was able to go and visit virtually, and it was honestly, it was really fun. It was really interactive. And I thought that was an amazing way to stay connected to their students. And then the door knocking model that I explained a little bit earlier, where there's communities, there's re-engagement programs that just go and knock on doors, and then they have the information needed or the resources needed for people to sign up right then and there. And so it's less about come to us, we're coming to you. You need SNAP, we can sign you up right now. We can do this right now. And that's also just such a great way to also engage. And you can also learn about who else in that home can also access the service, because oftentimes within re-engagement, it's not just one person. Oftentimes, maybe the mom didn't have get her high school diploma. Maybe the brothers or cousins who also lived in that home also didn't access or receive their high school diploma. And so they're also looking for very similar services. And again, this can be a volunteer or professional staffing base. It really depends on the model that works best for your community. And I'm sure each of you have your own form of how you provide the 5 functions for your I was gonna say clients, but I'll just say clients, for your clients. Questions? Oh, yes, and resource guides. So just here at the National League of Cities, we love putting out different resources and tools based on strategies that our partners share with us. We have our National Reengagement Network. I send out emails weekly with different resources of different things I've learned. Like if a re-engagement center put out a data report, I'll send that out. If a re-engagement network is putting out a summit, I'll send that out. Any resources I send out. We also have a quarterly re-engagement meeting that I mentioned earlier, where we meet and we share bounce ideas, discuss what's happening in your community. We have our next meeting December 15th. We're inviting someone to talk about journey mapping, so discussing what is the journey of the young person entering your program and really being intentional about what they're experiencing and what they're accessing, as well as we'll most likely carving out time to talk about the upcoming elections and what that could mean for your communities. And so these quarterly re-engagement calls are definitely catered to what is happening within the field. We put out, oh yeah, and then another resource is the Measure America data reports. Highly recommend it. Just looking through it, getting that general sense of data of what's happening nationally and locally within your communities. And then Andrew Moore, who is my supervisor, he's the director of Youth and Young Connections team at the National League of Cities. He put out a re-engagement book. I just got the book, so I'm excited to read it, but people have told me his outreach section, the outreach section is amazing. People tell me this all the time. So if you're interested, highly recommend. You can get it on Amazon. Start with the outreach. I keep hearing outreaches, it's chef's kiss. Very helpful. Any questions so far? This is my information. If you want to get in contact with me, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
This is Deanne again at iGrad, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that OSPI has done an amazing job, which, Washington State has done an amazing job of making grants available to us, at least, that we have really accessed and taken advantage of, and has given us so many more opportunities in our school. And so I just wanted to say thank you to OSPI for that. You wouldn't believe how far those grants go. And I mean, we have a Northwest Education Access who comes in and helps students with their resumes, with their transition from our school into a post-secondary, getting their FAFSA done. There's just, I had a million things in my head, and now I can't think of one thing. Of course, I've gone blank, but just work-based learning credits, right? The kids, they're out there working. They're working for their family. They're trying to take care of their family, and they're getting credits for doing that work, and making them feel like, hey, you can stay in school. We can give you credits for even though you're working, and we're going to work around your schedule. Just so many amazing opportunities. We're actually at iGrad going to have our own GED testing center in our school that is normally only at the high schools, where a student actually can just, that barrier of having to get out to a college to take their GED tests, when they can do it in-house here. It's amazing when we think outside the box, and we're given this access to these funds of what we can accomplish in our schools, and try to be a one-stop shop here as much as possible. But I love the knocking on doors too. We've tried that as well, and giving out flyers, and it's kind of like the helicopter dropping flyers all over everywhere. Like, come, we have stuff to offer. But I just want to say thank you to OSPI for those grants, because we really appreciate it here at iGrad.
Deanne, thank you. We're so happy that it's enriching the services you all have worked so hard to put in place already. Antonia, thank you so much for presenting, and Allison for presenting and sharing your template with everyone. This is a last chance for questions. We have about 4 minutes, and then we'll be signing off. You will receive a full list of links. We dropped them in the chat, but we have compiled them in a one-pager. It'll be sent to you. Look for an email from Jenna. Jenna will probably send that out within the next 48 hours or so. The resources we discussed for just the Washington lens of the ecosystem, all of those and more will be listed in the documents you receive. Are there any last minute questions or any more appreciations that we could share with Allison or Antonia before we go?
I do. I have a question. I would love to learn more about the youth, young people working with their families and receiving credits. Who does that, and can I get their information? Because
Antonia, we can talk more. We're actually in a, I'll encourage any of the folks on the call today to email me directly and say, I'd love to talk to Antonia. So funnel it through myself or Jenna. And then Antonia, I can tell you more about our state policy that we might be putting in place statewide. So that can occur for all students as well, not just those in our re-engagement programs.
great.
Any last comments? Oh, Riley, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Riley. I'm the Assistant Director of Alternative Education Programs in the Highline School District. So think CTAC area. We have our teams here. I want to give them a shout out. We have an innovative concept in our central office called the Connection Center. And we have a dedicated school counselor that takes referrals from our comprehensive high school programs and keeps in contact with the network of 5 open door programs and a number of ALE programs, a number of choice programs we have in our district. So all of the program exploration referral conversations, we have an office and a counselor dedicated to that work. And we're continuing to refine that. I know that last year they had about 600 of those conversations in our district. So yeah, that's something innovative that we're doing that if anyone has any questions, we can share what's going on.
I want to just summarize some of what I know about Riley and Highline's work, which is when Antonia showed us the last slide. So I'm going to go back real quick here. In terms of re-engagement models, there's a weaving that occurs or a concurrent approach. And that's kind of what's happening in Highline right now, is a mix of various things with various partners to make sure that if you're in one location of the district or the region, that there might be a one-stop center that you can go to, but that there are deployed staff in other locations. And there's no wrong way, I think, to do re-engagement when you're working with these core concepts. And we are always looking for exemplars like Highline and iGrad and the many other programs that are out there. And Amy shared about her program. So because it's time, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. Thank you so much, Antonia, for being with us today. And I'll make sure everybody gets the link if they'd like to sign up for the emails from the National League of Cities and also possibly participate in the National Reengagement Network. Thank you, Antonia. Thank you, Allison. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.